From the moment you were old enough to understand words like achievement or ambition, you were told a story. That success means having more than others. More money, more recognition, more influence. You were shown the scoreboard and told that life is a race, that if you run fast enough, sacrifice hard enough, optimize long enough, you'll finally arrive. That one day, if you push through, you'll cross a finish line where it all makes sense, where you can finally rest. Finally feel like you've done enough. That was the promise, but no one told you this. The finish line keeps moving, because the game you were placed in was never meant to be won. There is no final lap, no true arrival. Just a system that survives by keeping you running. In this game, your exhaustion isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's proof that the game is working exactly as designed. You see, we weren't raised to ask why we want what we want. We were taught to want what everyone else wants, and to call that ambition. To chase success not as a personal calling, but as a public performance. From school grades to job titles, from hustle culture to social comparison, we've been conditioned to measure our value against others, to believe that happiness is on the other side of achievement, and that if we feel tired, burned out, or lost, it's because we're not trying hard enough. But what if the opposite is true? What if your exhaustion is not a failure but a signal? A quiet protest from the deepest part of you saying, "This isn't it." Because maybe you're not weak. Maybe you're just human, and maybe the problem isn't your discipline or motivation, but the architecture of the game itself. Modern society runs on motion. It's built to reward momentum over meaning. The faster you go, the more you're praised, until you forget what you were running toward in the first place. You start living on autopilot, chasing goals you didn't choose, for reasons you can't quite name. You keep climbing, but the ladder is leaning on a wall that doesn't lead anywhere real, and still you're told to keep going, to never stop. Because the moment you stop, the system trembles, and so you keep moving. You stay busy, you stay productive, not because it fulfills you, but because it distracts you from the quiet, haunting question you've tried to ignore. What is all this for? But maybe the real answer isn't out there, waiting at the top of some invisible summit. Maybe it begins the moment you step off the treadmill and begin to question the entire game. Not out of rebellion, but out of honesty. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally woken up. You weren't made to live in a loop of endless striving. You weren't born to be a machine for output, for optics, for keeping the gears of society turning. The fatigue you feel isn't failure, it's clarity. The disillusionment isn't a breakdown, it's the beginning of truth. What if the life you've been taught to want isn't yours? What if success, as you've been sold, is just a script designed to keep you distracted from your own inner compass? And what if real success doesn't look like running faster, but finally having the courage to stop, turn around, and ask a different question? What game am I actually playing? And who decided the rules? Because until you ask that, you'll keep running towards something that can never satisfy you, and you'll call the emptiness along the way normal, but it's not. It's the signal that you're ready for something more honest, something deeper, something real. You're not failing, you're just waking up. If you've ever reached a goal and still felt empty, you already know this truth, even if you couldn't name it. You worked hard, you sacrificed, you got the thing you thought would change everything, and for a moment, it did. You felt the high, the pride, the reward, but then it faded. And almost immediately, your mind began searching for the next thing. A new title, a bigger house, a better version of yourself. As if the finish line you crossed was never meant to be the end, only a checkpoint before the next race began. This isn't failure, it's design. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this trap better than most. He saw desire not as a force that drives life forward, but as the very engine of suffering. To desire is to reach. And the moment you reach, your hands are already grasping for something else. This isn't about greed. It's about the nature of the mind. The moment we satisfy one craving, another appears, endlessly, quietly, relentlessly. And so we chase, not because we're weak, but because we've been told that desire is the path to meaning, that wanting more is how we grow, that to be ambitious is to be alive. But what if the opposite is true? What if desire doesn't elevate us, but enslaves us? Modern life is built on this lie. Entire economies depend on your dissatisfaction. Your discontent isn't a glitch, it's fuel. Every product, every platform, every metric of success is designed to whisper the same thing. You're almost there, just a little more. And so you postpone peace, you delay presence, you tell yourself you'll rest later, after the next thing is achieved. But later never comes, because desire keeps you anchored in a future that never arrives. It pulls your attention away from where you are and convinces you that fulfillment is always one step ahead. And the more you believe that, the less you're able to inhabit the only place life ever really happens, here. We don't just desire objects, we desire identity, image, validation. We desire to become someone in the eyes of others, but that identity is a moving target. It shifts with the trends, the markets, the expectations of a world that's always changing and never satisfied. You could spend your entire life chasing the perfect version of yourself and never once meet the real you. And here's the cruel twist. Even success, especially success, can deepen this hunger. Because once you achieve something, you have something to lose. And now, instead of striving for happiness, you're striving to protect it, to defend a status, an image, a reputation. And that fear, that tightening grip, only feeds the cycle. Desire isn't the road to freedom. It's the leash that keeps you running in circles, always chasing, never arriving. And the more you desire, the more you become a stranger to the present, to your own breath, to the people in front of you, to the quiet, simple truths that don't need to be earned or proven, only felt. Schopenhauer wasn't condemning all ambition. He was revealing a pattern, one we rarely notice until the weight of wanting becomes too much to carry. And when it does, we're left asking the same quiet question: when does it end? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better one is this: what happens if I stop? At some point, the chase begins to feel hollow. You start to sense that no matter how much you achieve, something essential is still missing. That the ladder you've been climbing doesn't lead to freedom, but to a more elaborate kind of prison. And the question that once terrified you, the question you avoided by staying busy, suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. What if the entire game is wrong? Schopenhauer didn't tell us to reject life. He told us to reject the illusion that fulfillment is something you can conquer, claim, or collect. That success is about climbing over others to reach some higher rung. That happiness is a prize for the most productive, the most persistent, the most praised. But what if that's the very belief that keeps us miserable? The truth is, most people don't want success. They want significance. They want to feel that their life matters, that their actions have meaning, that they are seen, valued, and alive. But we've been taught to pursue that feeling through external validation, through applause, admiration, and achievement. And so we measure our worth by how high we climb in someone else's system, using someone else's scorecard. But there's another kind of success, one that doesn't require recognition, one that doesn't come with trophies or titles or follower counts. It's quieter. It doesn't look impressive from the outside, but it feels right on the inside. It's the success of self-respect, of inner alignment, of waking up each morning and knowing you're living a life that's true, not one that just looks good in pictures. You see, there are two kinds of success. The first is the one society celebrates, visible, marketable, admired. It's designed for display, but it's rarely designed for depth. It demands performance. It rewards conformity. It thrives on constant striving. And yet, it often leaves people feeling more disconnected than ever, trapped in roles they never consciously chose. The second kind of success is harder to describe. It's not about being seen, but about seeing clearly. Not about getting more, but needing less. It's about living in alignment with what you truly value, even if no one claps, even if no one notices. It's the quiet strength that comes from being rooted in something deeper than ambition, a sense of self that doesn't shift with opinion or crumble under pressure. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing the first kind of success, you create space for the second kind to emerge. When you stop performing for approval, you begin discovering who you are without the mask. When you stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I know to be true?" your life starts to feel like it's actually yours. Schopenhauer wasn't urging you to abandon the world. He was inviting you to step out of the illusion, to recognize that the endless pursuit of more isn't a path to peace, it's the thing pulling you away from it. He knew that real freedom doesn't come from reaching the top. It comes from realizing you were never meant to spend your life climbing in the first place. So maybe success isn't about achieving more, but about needing less. About no longer being ruled by restless desire. About living from the inside out, not the outside in. And maybe the most powerful decision you'll ever make is to stop playing a game that was never built for your well-being. If real success means stepping out of the illusion, then it's worth asking, why was the illusion built in the first place? The truth is hard to swallow. Modern society was not designed to make you free. It was designed to make you functional. You were never meant to become yourself. You were meant to become useful, to fit in, to produce, to keep the wheels turning. From the moment you entered the system, you were shaped to serve it. You were taught how to follow rules, how to sit still, how to compete, how to obey. And as you got older, the language changed, but the message didn't. Now it's called professionalism, performance, productivity. But at its core, the system still asks the same thing. Be efficient, be impressive, be what we need you to be. The idea that your life belongs to you, that you could live on your own terms, was never truly part of the plan. You were conditioned to believe that happiness comes after usefulness, that if you work hard enough, earn enough, climb high enough, then freedom will come. That when you finally have enough, you'll be able to stop, to rest, to breathe. But enough is a moving target, and freedom in this system is a reward that's always just out of reach, because the longer you chase it, the deeper you fall into the machine. You climb higher, yes, but each rung of the ladder comes with more dependence, more responsibility, more fear of falling. The very system that promised you freedom quietly made you afraid to leave. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. He knew that society doesn't run on peace. It runs on desire. It needs you to want, because the moment you stop wanting, when you stop needing to be someone or prove something or get somewhere, you become dangerous. You stop being predictable. You stop being controllable. And so the system keeps feeding you dreams. It hands you the narrative of the good life, the house, the title, the image, the lifestyle. It shows you people who've made it and says, that could be you. But the closer you get, the more you realize the cost. Not just in time or energy, but in self, in silence, in truth. The most powerful tool of control isn't force, it's belief. The belief that your worth is tied to your output, that your identity must be proven through performance, that if you don't contribute in measurable ways, you don't matter. This belief is internalized so deeply that you begin to police yourself. You feel guilty for resting, anxious when you're not productive. You don't need anyone to push you. The system is now inside you. And the cruel irony is this: the more successful you become within the system, the harder it becomes to leave. The rewards increase, but so does the dependency. You build a life on top of expectations you didn't design, and now you can't move without shaking the whole thing. That's not freedom. That's captivity dressed as achievement. Schopenhauer understood that freedom doesn't come from acquiring more. It comes from needing less, from seeing through the illusion and stepping away from the script, not to escape life, but to reclaim it, to stop being a product of the machine and start becoming a presence in your own existence. So if you've ever wondered why success feels so heavy, maybe it's because it was never built to lift you. It was built to use you. And maybe the first act of liberation is to stop mistaking your usefulness for your worth. Once you begin to see how society rewards usefulness over authenticity, something shifts inside you. You start to notice how much of your life has been shaped not by truth, but by appearances. By the pressure to look successful even when you don't feel it, to appear confident even when you're lost, to seem like you have it all together even when you're quietly falling apart. And the deeper truth is this: most people aren't chasing a life. They're chasing an image of a life, one that looks impressive from the outside, one that earns admiration, applause, and approval. But rarely does that image reflect anything real. We spend years building identities out of expectations, carefully curated and polished for public consumption. We learn to say the right things, act the right way, wear the right mask. And somewhere along the way, we forget what our actual face looks like. But here's where something powerful happens. At some point, the performance becomes too heavy. The gap between who you are and who you pretend to be becomes too wide. And in that quiet discomfort, a new kind of success begins to emerge. One that isn't about impressing others, but about being honest with yourself. Because every time you choose truth over image, you win something far more lasting than applause. You gain integrity, not the loud kind that announces itself, but the quiet kind that holds you steady when no one's looking. You begin to respect yourself, not because of what you've achieved, but because of who you've chosen to be. This is the kind of success no one can give you, and no one can take away. It doesn't come with medals or headlines. It's invisible to the crowd, but you feel it in the silence, when you know you didn't betray yourself just to fit in, when you spoke the hard truth, even if your voice shook, when you stayed grounded in your values, even when it cost you something. That's real strength. That's real success. You won't always be understood. People might question your choices. They may call you foolish for not playing the game like everyone else, but that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live a life that feels right to you. And the irony is, when you stop trying to impress, you start to connect. Not with everyone, but with the right ones. With those who see your honesty and recognize themselves in it. Because authenticity, unlike image, has gravity. It pulls the real toward the real. Schopenhauer knew that most suffering comes from wanting to be someone instead of simply being. The constant comparison, the performance, the need to be seen, all of it keeps us locked in a cycle of dissatisfaction. But truth breaks the cycle. When you live in truth, your self-worth stops fluctuating with opinions. You stop being a mirror, reflecting what others want to see, and you become a light, revealing what's real. That's the kind of success the world doesn't teach, the kind you have to find on your own. But once you do, it stays with you, through failure, through rejection, through uncertainty. Because when you choose truth over image, you no longer need validation to feel worthy. You've already found it in yourself. At some point, after all the striving, all the performing, all the endless reaching, you realize something quietly profound. You're tired, not just in body, but in soul. Tired of the roles, tired of the masks, tired of chasing goals that never truly belong to you, tired of standing on a stage that only applauds you when you play a character and turns silent the moment you show your real face. And in that exhaustion, a new clarity begins to emerge, not through effort, but through surrender, not through pushing harder, but through letting go. Because real success, final, lasting success, isn't found in applause, status, or image. It's found in no longer needing to act, no more pretending, no more proving, no more racing toward illusions that disappear the moment you get close. Just you, living, feeling, doing, from a place inside that no one else can touch or validate or define. The world may still expect a performance. It may still try to pull you back into the game, to convince you that you're falling behind, that you should want more, that you should become more. But when you've seen the machinery up close, when you've felt how empty it is, you lose your appetite for pretending. You no longer crave permission. You no longer fear rejection. You no longer measure your worth by how well you fit into roles that were never written for you. You simply begin to live as you are. You follow the quiet pull of your inner voice. You say no when it costs you, and yes when it matters. You stop asking what success looks like and start asking what feels alive. You create not to impress, but because something inside you needs to be expressed. And that's when it happens. Something shifts. You no longer feel like a product of the world around you. You feel like a presence in it. Grounded, whole, awake. Because the deepest kind of success isn't external at all. It's not something you chase or earn. It's something you remember, something you return to. The part of you that was always there, before the noise, before the pressure, before the performance. This is what Schopenhauer pointed to, not escape, but essence, not withdrawal, but awakening. He didn't urge us to abandon the world, but to stop being fooled by it, to stop mistaking noise for truth, speed for depth, achievement for meaning. When desire quiets, when striving softens, when the illusion collapses and you're still standing, still breathing, still here, that's when life begins to feel like your own. And that's the paradox of it all. You spent years climbing, struggling, becoming who the world told you to be, only to find that what you were looking for wasn't up there. It was here, in stillness, in simplicity, in the quiet moments where you meet yourself without judgment, without agenda, without fear, when you wake up and no longer need to play the part, when you can finally exhale and know you don't need to be anything more than this. This is not the kind of success people will always see, but it's the kind that fills you from the inside, the kind that lasts, the kind that frees. So maybe the real measure of success is no longer how high you've climbed, but how honestly you live, how deeply you feel, how fully you return to yourself again and again. Because the greatest victory isn't being more than others. It's being wholly, deeply, unapologetically yourself. And when that happens, there are no more roles left to play, just life, lived in truth, and finally, fully yours.